Welcome to the Midlife Men podcast with me, Philip Briscoe. Today, I'm joined by Merlin, founder of Man Academy, an evolving community built on the idea that all men deserve support so they can serve. Merlin's on a mission to help men rediscover purpose, brotherhood, and empowerment in simple and practical ways. So, welcome, Merlin.
Thank you, Philip.
Let's start. So, I always ask my guests to talk about their particular story, their particular journey. So let's start with your journey and ultimately, how that led to what you're doing now.
Well, depending on how much detail, my parents separated when I was a baby. I was less than one, and I was brought up. My mum married a soldier subsequently, and I thought he was my dad growing up. Well, he was my dad. I thought it was my father. So he was in the army, and we travelled around a lot, so getting sort of uprooted. And then when I was 8, moved to a little island in Essex where my father lived and various other family members. And so I met him for the first time and was sent to weekly boarding school at the age of secondary school. I think it's age 11. I had some child abuse younger than that. Sort of my mum used to cane me, bamboo cane. And so I have a degree. I can tend to disassociate, and also running away. So disassociating is sort of, I'm here physically, but my mind checks out, disappears. And I'm in the queue for getting diagnosed for ADHD and or autism.
Do you think the disassociation comes from the child abuse and what you experienced? Was that your coping mechanism?
One of them, I have an array of coping mechanisms. Falling asleep, especially in a tricky conversation with a partner, painful, uncomfortable conversation. And it's interesting, my cousin says he does the same, and that feels like sort of checking out and disassociating. I used to run away physically, and just sort of, and I now sort of in my mind, the voice is saying, run away, sort of get out of here. But I'm much better at sort of staying present and also staying connected. It's a journey, my understanding, with sort of, I'm a fiend for growth in courses. And at university, I did the Landmark Forum and advanced course and was crewing for them for a while. And subsequently, I've been down the rabbit hole of workshops and courses, and to the extent actually that my family orchestrated an intervention not that long ago, wanting me to get diagnosed with ADHD and take the medication and to swear off workshops and courses.
Did they think the workshops and courses were having a detrimental effect?
Worried about me getting swept up in it and spending too much time and money on them. Something I've been digging into recently, I'm a bit hazy with time and dates and stuff, but recently, over the past some while, is that I can own having a sort of, good podcast. Yeah, great ideas. Love it. Or juicy book or workshop high and what have you. However, being blunt, unless I put the book into action and do the stuff, unless I use what is in the podcast or the workshop or whatever, it's sort of, either mental masturbation or just sort of, it's a waste of time and energy. And for example, there's a very, very good book in the men's work realm called No More Mr. Nice Guy by a chap called Robert Glover. I've been in a membership with him. He's a very, very good fella. And at the end of each chapter, they have what's called breaking free exercises. And I've just said, I'm in various men's groups as well as running for, with a couple of guys, we're going to do the breaking free exercises and share them with each other. Because when I listened to it on an audio book and I was exercising at the time, and so I didn't actually do the breaking free exercises. And so, yes, I've learned and gained understanding, not as much as if I'd actually done the work.
Do you think there's too much stuff out there? Do you think there's too much that you can absorb and it ends up, just balancing itself out, or do you need guidance, I guess, on finding your way through all of the very positive noise out there?
It's a good question. I'm a very, very big believer in there is no one way. And there's no one way to make a loaf of bread or bake a cake, let alone to have a relationship or to live a life. And what works for you with your makeup, you're a Philip, you've got your own thing going on, is that it may or may not work for me. And so, I mean, I believe that experimenting is good. I am currently rereading Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. And that's sort of old school. And Elise Bennett, I've been listening to her book, which was sort of a good while before. And Marcus Aurelius, Meditations. I mean, sort of, there's a whole load of sort of wisdom. And some people sort of repackage it. And Tony Robbins is very good, and he's off the back of Jim Rohn, and he's off the back of sort of whoever. And yeah, I mean, with the Man Academy, one of the aims is to bring together sort of best practice from different places. I'm not saying I'm the Dalai Merlin. I'm not saying I've got all the answers. I'm au contraire. I have got some skills and understanding and wisdom and insight. By virtue of the things I've done. And you've done a whole bunch of stuff in your decades that I haven't done, and you'll have understanding, wisdom, skills that I don't have, and as will the listeners. So yeah, I mean, trying things and seeing what vibes with you. One thing that the ubiquitous they say is to find somebody and to sort of to follow their pattern, because if someone's got sort of a, I don't know, be it a real estate or a men's work or sort of a whatever business or whatever health thing, follow the health practice for a while and see how it works for you. Don't jump from one and then dip your toe in another and dip your toe in another and dip your toe in another, jumpy.
Is there and I know you said, different horses for different courses. Someone listening to this who knows nothing about that world and goes into their local bookstore or onto online retailer, is there a kind of, safe, easy starter, book to buy? Is there one that, if you know nothing about this, is quite a kind of nice introduction to where you may go next?
Wow, that's a tough question. I mean, I'm a fiend for books. I've got boxes of books. I've just, I love them. I can, if you do show notes, I've got a book list email. I can just send it you and you put it in the show notes. The No More Mr. Nice Guy is very good. The Manhood is good. And yeah, Connor Beaton, I'm in a membership with him. He's good. Men's Work, one of his books. There's loads. There's really, really loads.
Just going back to, your story. I know that you spent time running a charity, shipping bicycles to Africa. How did you get into that, and what did that teach you, I guess, that you've then brought into creating Man Academy?
So I fell into university. The closest university that my then girlfriend and I had, I ended up at the LSE, London School of Economics, and I didn't know that it was super famous. And the day I turned up, I had sort of ripped off shorts and ripped jean shorts and a straw hat. And one of the guys, I did management. I was thinking city slicking, being an Essex boy. And one of the guys was wearing a pinstripe suit for the first 3 days. And people walking, I can't believe I'm here. And I had no idea. And my motivation, it turns out, was poor. And I discovered I was studying management. I discovered the short-term greedy sort of world in which we live. And the LSE still had some sort of, radical elements. and and sort of free Mandela and what have you at the time. And there was a guy who was Dr. Bike, fixing bikes in exchange for beers of a Friday evening. And it was actually teaching people, showing them how to fix the bikes rather than just, here's a beer, I'll be back in 20 minutes or whatever. It was sort of, okay, you get him a beer, and then it was, okay, right, unbolt this and clean it up with a rag, and I'll come back. And he went to the next guy and sort of, and then when someone was ready to do a bit, okay, anyone who doesn't know how to true a wheel, just gather around and show us. And then he said, because I always go from time to time, and he would say, look, Merlin, I'm leaving next year. It's a university. Do you want to be Dr. Bike next year? And I was like, okay. And so then I was Nurse Bike, and I would go on a weekly basis. We had lab coats, and I would then get the beers. And yeah, it's fairly straightforward, fixing bikes and adjusting brakes and truing wheels and the gears and what have you. It's not rocket science. And I also set up a juggling club, and so I'm very keen on teaching. And then a lady from Haiti was coming along. I was helping her with her bike, and she asked me for advice on setting up a factory for making bikes in Haiti. It's the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere and has been shat upon by America over the years. And I said, good idea. I'd give it up on the city slicking, and I'd give her a hand. And then I discovered an American group who were shipping bikes to Haiti, and they asked me, if we pay for it, do you want to send a container of bikes to Africa? And I said yes, because I'd been stuck in a catch-22 where the getting off the ground as a charity. I've got a great idea, Philip. Can you give me some money? And you'll go, well, sounds good, Merlin, but how do I know it's going to work? And I go, dude, until you give me some money, I can't prove it's going to work. So I was stuck. So when they said, if we paid, do you want to send a container to Africa? I said, great. And then managed to send a container to Haiti, but I basically worked out that it was more sensible for us to send bikes to Africa because Haiti is in the back door of America. It makes more sense for them to send bikes there. And there's sort of a colonial history with Africa. And I ended up running that for 21 years. And lessons learned, wow. I mean, teamwork is important. Volunteers are really, really, really important. Having a solid mission. I had various issues with staff and sort of lies and poison and trustees trying to kick me out a couple of times, which was pretty messy and painful. And so having alignment and having a code of honor and having people on the same page. And yeah, apparently you get similar things in academia. And so naively, you might think that sort of, yeah, they're in charity, public good, make the world a better place. Great. But I mean, there are still humans, and humans are sometimes or frequently odd. I can own that. But yeah, not necessarily malevolent, but sort of twisty and wanting to take over the charity. And I mean, and other lessons that sticking at it, because it was tricky getting it off the ground, and yeah, sort of blood, sweat and tears over the years. And people want to help, and people want to make the world a better place. And yeah, having an idea and following it through some of the.
So how did you go from that to deciding to work specifically with men? Creating your Man Academy. Was there a kind of tipping point where you thought, right, this is what I'm going to do instead of running a charity in Africa?
Yeah, the main thing is I was having some coaching and talking about having a break because I've been running it for 21 years. And so I had a sabbatical, and the idea was to set up a separate business and yeah, just a sort of a reset and to recalibrate. And I just didn't go back. I thought, yeah, change of scene, let somebody else have a crack. And yeah, there's more to Merlin than setting up a charity shipping bikes to Africa. And I was at a workshop called Train the Trainer. I met a chap called Blair Singer, absolutely amazing, my main teacher to this day. And one of the exercises is working out what you'd like to teach. And writ large across the page was sex, because at university, I'd had a situation with a lady, and oh man, yeah, there's a rabbit hole in details. And basically, I got into Taoist sexual practices, long story short. And yeah, and she said, have you no control? She was an older lady. Have you no control? And there were mitigating circumstances. I'm not going to get into the gruesome details. And I felt sort of some shame and embarrassment. And then I was learning these numerous and various Taoist sexual practices, which I've been doing for like 30 years now.
Just for people who don't know what that is, I'm not even sure I'm going to say it right, Taoist sexual practices. I'm sure Taoism, what you just said.
The Taoists were the kind of scientists of their age, and they were big into studying, and their idea of sort of studying is intergenerational. Nowadays, we might say, oh, I've done a longitudinal study. It was like 5 years, but these guys literally intergenerational, in monasteries and stuff. And they were relaxed around sex, and they were aware that we wouldn't be here if there wasn't sex. And they're saying that sort of, yeah, people like sex. Whereas nowadays in our culture, there's a sort of taboo around it. And one of the main things, just for all your listeners out there, for lasting longer in bed, is to relax the area around the PC muscle. And so the bit, if I need a wee, go, hold it in, no toilet, hold it in. That bit, keep that and the surrounding area relaxed for the duration of the whole lovemaking process, and you will last a lot longer. And you can test it with masturbation. It's like really clear. And then there's sort of rabbit holes of energy circulation and blocking impulses and sort of numerous and various things. And then I've been into Tantra for 10 odd years, including some, even by my own standards, pretty woo-woo stuff, playing a human like a theremin, which is an instrument where you don't touch it and you sort of put it, go, and doing that with a human, energy play, not touching them, sort of, yeah. And I've had various ladies sort of orgasming and ejaculating without being touched. It's bonkers, but true. There's videos online, and yes, it definitely is a thing. And yeah, there's a lady called Jan Day, who I've trained with various people. Jan Day, very good. Jem Ayres, very good. And the catch, looping the story, I was wanting to teach sex and intimacy. I had a business partner in a separate enterprise, and he didn't want me bringing our business into disrepute by teaching sex and intimacy. He says it's good, it's needed, fantastic. However, he didn't want me doing it. So I kind of zoomed out into men's work, and have gone down the men's work rabbit hole, and been in and am in men's groups. I was mentoring. There's a charity called A Band of Brothers, which set up in Brighton, and they've now got them around the UK. And they support young men in and around the criminal justice system. And they've won various awards, and they are really good. Both what they do and how they do it is fantastic. And I've been working with them for a few years, and yeah, and I've as I said, with Robert Glover and Connor Beaton, and the chap called Kenny taught me how to run circles. He's in the UK, and I'm still in a circle with him, get supervision.
And we've talked to Kenny. We've talked to Kenny for this podcast. Kenny's brilliant.
He's fantastic, and he's the agony uncle in the I newspaper. He's a good, very good man. He's been doing men's circles like 25 years. He didn't invent it, but he's very good. So
this, the concept of, or this idea that all men deserve support so they can serve. Can you talk a bit about that then? What does that mean, and why did you come up with that?
There is what I call either conditioning or programming which is put into us, has been put into me at a young age. And up until the age of around 6, my brain was in the theta brainwave state, similar to meditation, and amazing at learning. And I'm learning how to walk and talk and sort of, ride a bike and whatever, just learning. And if I'd been in a situation, in a multilingual situation, I could have learned 9 languages, just learning. However, no discernment. And so I just believe whatever I'm told. And the issue, there's various issues. One is that when I'm now sort of, 10, 15, whatever, and I've got discernment, the problem is that I've also got filters. And I only see what I want to see, I only hear what I want to hear. And if you were to tell me stuff that doesn't fit with my worldview, I'd say, no, you're full of rubbish. It doesn't make sense. And basically I would start policing myself. I'd start policing you. We would police each other. And the conditioning for men, there's a whole bunch of men should. And they're like, boys don't. So if I'm a real man, I should be the breadwinner. I should be brave. I should be strong. I should be the lone warrior or the lone wolf. I should do it myself. And so this comes from your sort of your films and John Wayne and James Bond and Clint Eastwood. He came from out of town and he was strong and he was sort of, it wasn't fun. And there's a whole bunch of men should not. If I'm a real man, the classic one, men don't cry or boys don't cry. Don't be feminine or effeminate. Don't be gay. Don't be emotional. And specifically, anger is about the only emotion that's kind of allowed or expected of men, but don't be emotional and don't show vulnerability. Don't show weakness. And being blunt, if I'd have shown a lot of vulnerability and weakness at secondary school, it wouldn't necessarily have gone down well for me. And the problem is that with these men should be a lone warrior, men should not show vulnerability. Men just sort of shut down. The classic thing is just shove it down inside, any issues and stuff, just shove it down inside. And not breaking news, but basically it doesn't sort of compost and disappear. It all stays in there. And the most vivid, nasty bastard effect of this is men killing themselves, taking their own lives. And the nasty situation is that you and my mutual friend Fred, imaginary friend Fred, goes and hangs himself, and you and I go, shit, we had no idea, because Fred never said, hey guys, I'm struggling here, because he didn't want to show weakness, because he wants to be the lone warrior and do it himself. And truth bumps. It's painful. I've got various friends who've killed themselves over the years, and I've got a childhood friend, and their son hung himself a couple of years ago, and so it's not our imaginary friend Fred. We know a little bit. The kid, they didn't know he was the life and soul of the party, and his siblings and his parents didn't know that he was struggling because of the lone warrior conditioning. And because of the sort of don't show emotions and what have you. And so one of the Man Academy's biggest goals is to halve the 2020 male suicide rate by 2050 through having people just sharing and talking and saying, I'm struggling here. Separately, learning the tools and skills that didn't get taught at school, because intimacy for me, sex ed was don't get pregnant, don't catch the disease. That was it. Nothing on pleasure, nothing on consent. And there is, a lot of skills that can be learned around that. They don't teach money, what it is, how it works. They don't teach communication. They don't teach listening skills. They don't teach how to fight fairly. They don't teach a whole bunch of stuff. And family, my father is just married wife number 5. And so I didn't have good examples from the family situation. However, various people in various topics have distilled wisdom standing on the shoulders of giants and sort of books aforementioned. And so, your Brené Browns and your, I mean, like habits. There's BJ Fogg, who set up the behavioral change department at Stanford University. It's a premium university. And so suffice to say, the guy knows a thing or 10 about habits. James Clear wrote Atomic Habits. There are skills, and they have sort of synthesized and distilled into juicy wisdom that works. And so my part of the vision of Man Academy is for men to learn together rather than just here's a book. It's actually learning together and then questioning it and sort of working out the details and then implementing it together. As I mentioned earlier, unless I implement it, it's not much use.
And how do you, if we've got, as men, we grow up, we've got this kind of, permafrost where all our experiences and emotion and trauma and everything else is, really, really tucked away. I mean, how do you start to, defrost? How do you even begin? Because, not everybody knows. It's not necessarily intuitive, especially if you live in a world where still nobody talks about their feelings. How do you go down that route? Do you look online? Do you have some sort of epiphany where you think, I know, I'll go and talk to my friends? Because often it's about talking to the right people, right? And in the right place.
Yeah, it's a good question. My understanding is that a lot of conversations are very shallow, and it's sort of, how's whatever the football team doing, and sort of, and moaning about the politics and moaning about the weather, and just sort of shallow. Unless people get drunk, sometimes that helps. I'm not advocating that as a thing, but that's when people sometimes open up. My experience of attending and running men's circles is that a lot of the time guys are like, wow, I can share, I can speak. And these other guys, when they're new and they're like, all the other guys are sort of sharing and being open, they're okay, well, it's the same. And we have ground rules, which have come from Kenny. So sort of confidentiality and what have you. And it's interesting because it's not the aim of men's circles, but there is a very specific benefit that other people have observed, that Merlin, might think I'm a freak, and I might think I'm the only guy who's experienced this, or who's felt that, or who's worried about this, or afraid of whatever. Because of the don't worry, I just stuff it down inside. I don't want to show weakness. And then sometimes we have a common topic that we're digging into with the circle. And I'm not saying it's total carbon copy, but as we go around the room, it's just like, and you too, and you as well. Yowza. It's not just me. I'm not a freak. These guys they've been in different families, different places, different ages. But there's really a lot of overlap and similarity. And you say, wow, it's not just me.
So it's this sense of community then. You're fostering a sense of community, almost brotherhood then, which is allowing men to, share and start to understand themselves, I guess, and understand the world around them.
Yeah, I think the answer is a safe space where it's not going to bite me in the arse if I share stuff. It's not going to get spread and come back and held against me and drug up in court. And yeah, it's not about sort of sharing everything with everybody. I would personally recommend finding a local men's group. I have not built a database. I can signpost. There is a database of men's groups, and either that or set up your own one. I mean, Kenny runs training on them, or you can get ground rules from my website and get a bunch of guys who want who want more out of life. I mean, the Man Academy, we are shortly launching a membership, and it's going to start off with a men's work foundation. And so looking at conditioning, which I've touched on briefly, looking at masculine archetypes, the warrior, the wizard, the lover, the king. What happens if you got too much warrior? What happens if you got too little warrior? and looking at goals, looking at habits, looking at discipline, and sort of dipping a toe into the men's work realm, and then having a community and a brotherhood and sort of a safe space where it's good to share, where oh man, there's lots. So being witnessed is one thing, and it's not a question of, oh, there, Merlin, I can see that's difficult. Let me help. I'll carry your burden for you. Partly because I've given myself the burden, and partly because it's stuff I've got to do. I mean, in an ideal world, you'd wave a magic wand and sort of, there you go, Merlin, all your problems gone. But I'm growing through my problems. So the witnessing is like, okay, Merlin, I see you. That sounds painful. That sounds tricky. And so the witnessing is good. There's also a sort of a hand around the shoulders and like sort of, or picking me up when I trip and skim my knees, it helping me up to my feet, dust me down a bit, pep talk, off you go. Or if separately, a sort of a general kick in the arse sometimes, because if my goal is to run a marathon or run 5K or something, and I'm eating chips 5 times a week, then you go, Merlin, you're saying you want this and yet you're doing that. And what Connor Beaton calls it, calling forward rather than calling out. You're calling me forward. And so is this the man you want to be? And then the other thing with the Man Academy, once we've gone through the foundation, we will then choose a maximum of 3 goals. And from personal painful experience, when I've got 10 goals, I get overwhelmed, I get distracted, I get confused, and I don't get traction. And the idea is that a group of men will not pressure test my goals, but will sort of feedback on them. Is it for you, or is it for your family? Is it a big enough goal? Is it helping the world rather than just being greedy? And then when it's sort of got refined and clear, there's a thing of, I can say in my head, I want to do whatever. But if I then say to a whole bunch of guys, right, I, Merlin, solemnly swear that I am going to do X by this date, and then you guys have been part of it, and you go, yay, go Merlin. And then the second part is choosing some routes to get to that goal. And again, getting feedback. And so you might say, well, I went this way and it was a bit tricky here, but it worked. And somebody else might say, well, I went this way and I found it reasonably smooth and blah, blah, blah. But then just working out multiple routes, because if I've only got one route and it messes up, which happens, it's life, we're human, then I don't go, okay, well, I'm stuffed, but okay, switch to route B, route C, route D. And then the last bit worked out with the men is some milestones so that I can get, the idea is for it's a big juicy goal to provide power and to provide sort of, goodness in the world. But then having some milestones on the way there so that I can get a sense of accomplishment, so I can make sure it's actually happening. And then the juicy next bit is under the buckets or the overarching topics of health, wealth, and relationships. There's going to be guys with either the same goal or similar goals. So if it's like losing weight or quitting porn, or sort of running a marathon or running a half marathon, and you might want to run a marathon, might run a half marathon. And so getting a bunch of guys who have got a similar goal and then working together both to learn the skills and then to implement the skills. And accountability is really important, because 90% of the time I know what I need to do. However, the difference between knowing what I need to do and between doing it can be a real pain, being human and fallible and sort of conditioning and blah, blah, blah. So having guys to hold each other accountable and having a brotherhood of people going in the same direction. And then the last bit is coaching and getting there's two aspects. One is a sort of classic coaching of why do you think you're doing that and what might you do and how the stopping. And the other side is actual practical learning the skills that I mentioned from the different people with sort of habits and goals and all the wisdom that different people have distilled and learning it and putting it into action.
So that's men working together. As you said, accountability, not just for yourself, but for other people, working as a as a brotherhood, I guess, if you want to call it that. What I mean, I know it differs, group to group, but generally, have you got men from all backgrounds, jobs, ages? Is it? Do you leave all that at the door? Is it a real leveler, and you just focus on, just being men and working together?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, a lot of guys ask, so who's there? What are the ages and stuff? And as with much of life, there is a bell curve. The youngest I've had is 17. The oldest is 84. I mean, the bulk is from 30 to sort of 60. A lot of people, the most people I've had are actual therapists, statistically, and people separately referred by therapists. And I mean, people who've just left a relationship, or people who are looking for a relationship, or people who've got a sexless relationship. It's all, we're all men, and we've all had the conditioning, and there's guys from different countries, like, Pakistan and America and various places, Australia, they've had the same conditioning. We're in a sort of multicultural, the conditioning's the same. In different ages, it's still the same. And with the conditioning, I'm not slating my parents or my school or my society for how they conditioned me, because they were conditioned by their parents and their society and their schools. And so they're just sort of passing it on. And so my vision is with the Man Academy, is to have it as kind of open source, like Linux or Ubuntu operating systems, or Thunderbird or Firefox, where we've got version 1.1, and then different people chip in, and we can change this and tweak that, and change this, tweak that, and then version 1.2, and then sort of version 1.3, and sort of collaboratively and co-creating and make it better and evolve it over time, not have it as this is the way you have to do it.
And how does that flow? Because, you talked about from being, very young, sub 10 through school, etc. How do we make sure this gets embedded in society? Because you could say, well, if you're a parent, you can try and influence your son's thinking, or your children's thinking. It's not just boys, is it? But some people don't have children. I mean, should we all be trying to be better role models in the community? How do you do that? How's it actually going to start to embed itself in society? So maybe not this generation, but the next generation, it becomes something where men and women feel open and capable of expressing themselves and not having to pretend to be something else.
Well, the pretending to be something else is a big one, and sort of masks that we wear. And I might wear a mask with a partner, or a different mask with friends, a different mask at work. And that's kind of ties in with conditioning. There's a chap, Jordan Peterson, and he says that step one is to get my life in order and focus on getting me together. And then once I've got me together, then do some helping and supporting getting my family together. And then once I got my family together, then work on my community and help get my community together. And it's like, put your own oxygen mask on first, rather than trying to help you. And Jesus was saying, sort of take the log out of your own eye before you start messing around with splinters in somebody else's eye. And as I mentioned, learning skills, the life skills that are, as I see it, essential: communicating, relating, and having support to learn those skills and implement those skills. And my youngest is 18, and there's a whole load of stuff that I wish that I'd done with him. It's odd, because in order to drive a car nowadays, you have a theory test and then a practical test. But to have a kid, it's just like, happy birthday, off you go, good luck, go well. It's tricky, dude. I can own trickiness. And John Cleese said that your parents fuck you up, and then they fuck you up again. And I have been fucked up by my parents. I have certainly fucked my kids up. I haven't passed on the violence. And I think the idea is to sort of to do at least a slightly better job. But societally, if we can get people talking and sharing and being more open and being more honest with myself and being more honest with other people, rather than pretending it's all okay, and hence the sort of suiciding. And it's also one of the tricky things at the moment is with sort of all the media and the news. I've been avoiding the news for 20 years, but the news is sort of all negative, and if it bleeds, it leads, and what have you. So steering clear of that is my tip. But the other thing is with social media, 99.99% of the time, it's a photo of I'm on the beach with the girl with the pina colada, living my best life, hooray! Or I'm sort of snowboarding, happy. It's all great fun. And it's not a photo of me sort of, oh man, I'm struggling here. It's hard. It's painful. I'm tears under the duvet type of thing. And so the problem is, I'm looking on social media and it looks like everybody is happy and chirpy and doing well. And I see people walking down the street and I imagine, well, they got to be happy and doing well because that's what I'm seeing everywhere. And I'm a freak and for feeling uncomfortable, for struggling, for feeling painful. So more open, honest conversations with people you trust in sort of a safe space. And sort of, there's a whole bunch of tools on holding space with partners, which again, I wasn't taught at school. But there are practical, easy, simple steps that can be taken. And that's part of what the Man Academy is after.
And what's for someone listening to this, who perhaps recognises themselves, what's a really simple first step? I appreciate you said, go and join a men's group, have a look online or whatever, but what's something they can do to start empowering, if that's the right word, themselves, today, having listened to this?
Good question. Basically, one thing that you're doing that is not helping you in the big scheme of things. And so, working on cutting that back. I'm not saying stop it cold turkey. Oh, you can do, but sort of identifying what's the one thing that would be that's niggling me that I know, oh man, not again. And what's the one thing that I'm not doing that I know will be beneficial? And then sort of get that implemented. And then once it's a solid habit, then look for the next thing. And sort of self-awareness and self-honesty. Meditating is a good one. Journaling is a good one. And sort of putting stuff on paper and having a conversation, asking yourself some questions, and then sort of writing out the answers. Like what do I make a list? What are the 10 things that I don't want to do that I find myself doing on a regular basis? And then sort of pick one of them and okay, how might I sort of cut back on this thing? What support might I get? What tools might I use? What might I replace it with? When I get the urge to do that, then what might I swap it out with? It's a big long topic. But yeah, that's just a nutshell.
Do you think there is a bit of a privilege with being able to, think like this and access these sorts of programs? And because, and I don't want to give examples because, I'm generalizing, but, industries like construction, for example, it's always used, it's, and I'm generalizing, probably, far more of a kind of macho environment than perhaps, working in the city in a bank, or maybe not actually. So, how do you reach those guys that don't listen to podcasts? They don't have a moment where they think, I think I'll do a bit of journaling. How do you reach them? Because a lot of those guys are the ones that are found in their garage, and no one had a clue.
That is tricky, dude. It really, really is. Because specifically, so I'm my job is in the men's work realm, and getting men engaged is notoriously not super easy. And if you go to a workshop on whatever, often it's sort of 90% women. They're seen to be a lot more open to growth and development and learning. Forgive me for banging on about conditioning, but the whole lone warrior conditioning, I've got to do it myself if I'm a real man. And yeah, it's tricky. At the same time, guys are aware that they're not fulfilling their potential. Guys are aware that it's tricky. And actually reaching out for help, be it sort of around sort of, I'm feeling depressed and or sort of not sure about being alive. But the idea is to, rather than wait until it gets to the desperate state, it's get some deep connection and support and conversations and depth early. And my experience is that I am not fulfilling my potential. I know that there's a lot more in me, emotionally, physically, mentally. I've been playing small. I describe it as like sort of having the handbrake on, like driving with the handbrake on. So I'm making some progress, but the handbrake's on. And it's me who's got the handbrake on, due to the conditioning. And I mean, and separately, there's a thing with kids not getting their needs met, and there's sort of big T trauma and little T trauma. Big T trauma being, a car crash, or being sort of abuse and what have you, and small T trauma when I'm not getting my needs met. And that's, again, not saying that sort of the parent is bad because they're not waiting on me hand and foot, and I might want attention, but they're cooking some food in order to feed the family, or they're earning some money in order to feed the family. And so it's not necessarily they're being bad, but at that point I didn't get my needs met. And that's sort of small T traumas, which adds up. And the other thing with conditioning is it comes in so many times from so many directions, so many people, that it just, and then it gets baked in, and it's sort of, there's like what the fish, one fish asks the other fish, how's the water? And the fish goes, what water? Because it's only ever known the water. And so with the conditioning, I've only ever known life through my lens and my experience.
So I've really enjoyed this conversation. It's been a roller coaster. I think we've tackled a lot. If people want to connect with you, I mean, we'll put some links in, and I know you've said you provide a lot of links to books and all sorts of resources. If they want to get involved with you or find out more about the Man Academy, what do they do? Do they go to your website?
Yeah, man.academy is the website. Man.academy. And the membership is the best way to get involved, which is hopefully launched by the time you listen to this. And and just get in touch with a close friend, from someone you trust, and share how you're feeling and say, look, I want a bit more depth in my life. Are you up for that? Are you open for that? Just don't bottle it up, because it will bite your ass and you won't fulfill your potential, is my take.
Thank you. What a great way to end the conversation. So thank you, Merlin. Thanks for all your thoughts and wisdom.
Thanks for having me. Cheers, guys.
Thank you for listening to the Midlife Men podcast with me, Philip Briscoe. If you want to find out more about Merlin and Man Academy, visit his website, www.man.academy. Merlin recommends various books throughout our chat, and there'll be a list in the show notes. As usual, if you can help raise the profile of the podcast, it will really help. And if you can review the show and share it with your networks, will be really appreciated. If you have a story to share, then do please contact me through the website mid-lifemen.com. There's also a book called Men Speak Up, The Journeys Through Mental Health, which is based on some stories from the podcast and available on Amazon and through other online retailers.